tanks, and I was thinking about my last video I did, which was on how to train up crews, and this time I think I'm going to do a video on what to do with your crew, like what the skills are and why you need certain skills and might not need others, and what skills are best for what type of tank. I'm kind of hoping this will be a little shorter, but I got a feeling it's going to be a lot longer. So we're going to start out with light tanks. Well, let's start out with skills first. Starting out with the basic skills, I'm going to go to the personal file here and click on skills. Obviously you have to have 100% before you get to train any skills. Now there's what they call common skills, which are repairs, camouflage, firefighting, and brothers in arms. This crew's already got brothers in arms, so it's not showing up here. Now you also have different skills that each specific type can get. One word real quick, there's a difference between a skill and a perk. If you look at the bottom here, it says skills comes into effect after training starts. The effectiveness will increase as the skill increases. For every 1% of this skill adds 0.5% to the repair speed. Or for the camouflage, it adds, for every 1%, it adds 0.5%. So you can see how these skills can really quickly add up to make your tank a lot better. Now the other is perks, and if you look at the bottom here, it says perk comes into effect after it reaches 100%. So my kid was screaming, so I had to pause it real quick. I don't remember exactly where I was. I know I was talking about skills. Mentor, for instance, is a skill. When you start training it, it immediately starts giving you a bonus. Jack of all trades is a skill. When you start training it, it automatically kicks in and starts working. Things like Eagle Eye or Sixth Sense are perks. A perk has to be at 100% before it has any effect whatsoever. It can be at 99% and do you absolutely no good whatsoever. So, that's what the difference between skills and perks are. Now, if you want to have a really effective tank crew, what I recommend, not everybody recommends this, but I do, and I know Jingles does, and a few of the other Unicums do. It is to train on a skill. If you look up here, you'll see I'm training on Recon, which is a skill, and it's at 46%. So while it's at 46%, it's still doing me good. Whereas if it were a perk, it would be wasted space. I'll train that up to about 100%, and then I'll actually train it a little bit further. I'll pick something like repairs or camouflage or something, and train it up about another 25 to 30%. And then I'll go to drop skill, and I'll click the regimental school, which is 20,000 credits, and I'll drop it. And when I do so, if I've got it trained about 20 to 30% past where it is now, it should pop up at being about 100%. I will usually check to make sure before I actually drop it that it will be at 100%. At that point, you're allowed to pick whatever skills you want on there, which means that I would be able to keep my brothers in arms, and I'd be able to put whatever else I wanted on there. If I wanted Sixth Sense or Eagle Eye, I would be able to put that on there. Now, what do the various skills and perks do. I'll go through the skills first. First off, you've got your basic ones that everybody can get, no matter what their position in the tank is. Repairs, obviously, accelerates repairs to damage modules. If you're running a light tank, I would recommend this as a second or third skill. I wouldn't recommend it as a first skill. Usually if you get hit, you're probably gonna die. Camouflage. For light tanks, camouflage is very good. Light tanks get to keep their camo rating as they're moving. So if you have a light tank and you have camouflage on it and you put gold camo paint on it, like this one has, then you are going to have a much higher camo rating even while you're moving than you would without them. Firefighting. In a light tank, if you catch on fire, you're probably going to be dead before your crew can put it out. A better option is to put a automatic or even a small fire extinguisher on and not worry about training this skill. Mentor. Mentor is one I like to train a lot of my commanders on because it actually adds experience to the rest of the crew. I don't have it on this one because a little while ago I traded it out for Brothers in Arms. If you look at a lot of my other tanks, they will have it. I also switched him to Eagle Eye because we were doing a tier 1 skirmish and I needed view range over experience. When my Eagle Eye gets back to 100%, I will probably start retraining him on Mentor. That's a very good skill for a commander to have. Eagle Eye, which you see over here at 46%, it's Recon. That's not Eagle Eye, Recon. Recon is a very good one for light tanks, especially to have light tanks and tank destroyers. It's useful on pretty much anything, but those two are the most important. It allows you to see farther, and anytime you can see the enemy before he can see you is always a good thing. So if you have a high camo rating and you are able to see a long way, you are going to be able to see and kill the enemy before he's going to be able to see or kill you. Jack of all trades. This is good in the French heavies especially. On a light tank I wouldn't worry about it too much. Heavy tanks, heavy tank destroyers, probably the most useful one where you're going to be up brawling with the enemy and getting crew knocked out. Like I said, the French heavy tanks where they have multiple crew members who are all loaders. I'm looking at you, 5100. They are the ones that you are going to want Jack of all trades on. Eagle Eye. Eagle Eye lets you identify critically damaged modules. I'm really not sure how useful this is. I haven't really used it much or at all. I haven't really even seen anybody actually using it. This may be one of those ones that nobody uses. Sixth Sense. Oh, and by the way, Eagle Eye is a perk, so it does have to reach 100%. And I was going to just go run through the skills, but I guess I'm just going to go through in order and explain everything. So yeah, that was a perk, which is another reason I probably won't ever put it on unless I have a 6-skill crew. Sixth Sense. A lot of people really say that this is important on a scout tank or a tank destroyer. In an arty, I would definitely say it's necessary, or at least very helpful. It lets you know that you've been spotted. It does have a drawback. It takes 3 seconds to kick in. And if I'm shooting at you, 3 seconds could very well mean you're dead already. However, it is useful. Sixth Sense is useful for a scout tank in that If you're hiding in a bush and the enemy is coming, it will tell you when you've been spotted. Same with the tank destroyer. Very useful for artillery because you will oftentimes be in God mode and not be able to see what's coming up on you, especially if you're not paying attention to the map like you should. Like I was saying, if you're in God mode and you don't happen to be looking at the mini-map, which you should be, but if you're not, all of a sudden having a big flashing light bulb and a screaming siren right in the middle of your screen will at least let you know that you have been spotted just before you die. So you have some chance to maybe try to get away. So very useful for artillery. Gunner skills. You have designated target. Makes enemy visible for 2 more seconds. It's a perk. It's not particularly useful. I would definitely use other skills before I would put a designated target on my gunner. If I had more than one gunner, then I might consider putting it on as say a 4th or a 5th skill. Armorer. Armor increases the accuracy of a damaged gun. If you have a sniper tank, any kind of tank that relies on its accuracy to do its damage and not a brawler tank, then armor would be very good. If you have a German tank destroyer, if you have a German heavy tank, you would want armorer. If you have a brawler where you're going to be at point blank range all the time, like an IS-3 or a Churchill 3 or something like that, not really a useful skill. Again, on light tanks, if you've taken damage to your gun, you're probably going to be dead anyway. Same with artillery. There's more useful skills to train than that on those types, but if you're in something that's going to be relying on long range DPM type sniping mode stuff, then yeah, you probably want armor if you have the space for it. Deadeye is a perk. It increases the chance to cause critical damage to an enemy vehicle. If you are shooting enemy vehicles trying to do module damage and whatnot, it's really good for the current mission where you have to set somebody on fire. Having Deadeye definitely increases your chances. It's something I don't actually have on any of mine, but that's just simply because most of mine don't have more than 2 or 3 skills. It's not something that I necessarily would recommend, but I wouldn't not recommend it. It's a good skill to have. I just haven't gotten any crews skilled enough to put it on. There's other stuff that I would put on first. Snapshot. This is one of those things that I'd put on first. It's a skill, and it decreases the bloom of your aiming reticle while you're moving or moving the turret. I think it's actually just while you're moving the turret. So, if you're in a non-turreted tank destroyer or an artillery that doesn't have a turret, you don't want Snapshot. It won't do you any good. It'll reduce the amount of bloom when you move the gun, but your bloom usually isn't that bad for just moving the gun anyway. It's when you actually move the tank, and this doesn't help out any for moving the tank, just the turret. So, you don't want Snapshot in a non-turreted vehicle. Any vehicle that has a turret, especially if it's something that likes to shoot on the move, like a scout or a medium or a brawling heavy, it comes in useful. Moving on, we've got skills for the radio operator. And this particular commander is getting all these different skills because on this vehicle he gets to play a multitude of roles. which makes him one guy that you don't want to have injured. Anyway, first off, you've got situational awareness, which is probably the next thing I'll train up on this guy, because it also extends view range. Now, if you have a commander and a radio operator and you train them both on situational awareness, then obviously you get your view range extended much faster. If it's someone like this guy, where it's both the commander and the radio operator, you can only train one at a time, and so it takes a long time to get them both. But it's a very useful skill to have. It's the only skill that I really like for radio operators that are a radio operator only skill, because it again extends your view range, and like I said with the recon, anytime you can see further is a good thing. Call for Vengeance, this was actually the first thing I trained on my first radio operator when I first hit 100%. It was on my Panzer III-4. And it's really not that useful. It's a perk, which means you have to have it all the way at 100%. And it means that if your radio operator survives when your tank dies, he will report the enemy positions for 2 more seconds. Well, gee golly. They already report it for 6 seconds, and if your team hasn't killed him by that time, they probably aren't going to get the chance. So, not really all that helpful. The only time I would ever mount this would be as a final skill on a scout. But like I said, it's not really all that helpful, and I probably would never put it on again. I actually retrained that to Brothers in Arms a while back. Signal boosting is a skill. That means you can train it from the beginning. It extends your signal range. It's useful particularly if you're in a Russian tank where they have terrible signal range. Basically what it means is if you have this, you're going to be able to broadcast what you can see farther. That does not mean that you can see farther, it just means that when you do see something, you can broadcast where it is to allies that are further away. I would put this in if I already had Brothers in Arms camouflage and situational awareness trained. If I was in a heavy tank, I'd also add repairs and or firefighting before I put it in, but it would be, I could see it being useful, especially if you're in a scout, or possibly a heavy tank that's going to be leading the charge. If you're in a tank destroyer, probably not that useful. If you're in a medium, nah, I'd still put situational awareness before it. Relaying is another skill, and it extends the signal range of everything that you are near. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but from what I've seen, it seems to take signals that are given to you and rebroadcast them. So it could be possibly useful, but from everything I've heard, it's only really useful in Clan Wars. Okay, so that's all the skills that I can get on this guy. Once again, that was the skills for the radio operator, the gunner, the commander, and the common crew that everybody can get. So let's skip to the driver real quick and see what skills he can get. Of course, he can get the same common skills that everyone else can. You also get controlled impact, which is really useful in certain heavy tanks that have enough speed to do ramming. It's also useful in mediums. I would not train it in a tank destroyer, artillery, or light tank. If you try to ram something in a light tank, you are going to die. If you try to ram something in a tank destroyer, you are going to die. And if you're down to ramming somebody in a artillery, you're probably dead anyway. So not useful at all. One that is useful, and this is a skill that is off-road driving. Off-road driving makes your tank go faster if you're not on a road. Anytime you can move faster is usually better. The only time I can think of where that does not come into effect is when you're someone like me who's used to driving slow tanks, and you find yourself driving a fast medium, and suddenly look at the map and find that there's nobody near you. But as a general rule, I would definitely recommend off-road driving to anyone who can put it on. It's a good skill to have. It makes your tanks move faster, it makes them turn faster. It generally makes your tank more maneuverable, and like I said, it's a skill, not a perk, so as soon as you start training it, it will start taking effect. Smooth ride, if you're in anything that likes to shoot on the move, I'm looking at you, British Tank Destroyer line, I'm looking at mediums, I'm looking at things like the IS-3 or the E-75 or the E-100. If you're in something that's going to be doing a lot of shooting while moving, you want smooth ride. It makes it so that your bloom does not increase as you move. Preventative maintenance. This is something that is very, very situational. I would not recommend this perk. For one thing, it's a perk. You have to wait till it comes to 100%. I would not recommend it on most tanks unless you have found that you have a real significant percentage of the time that you catch fire. If you're catching fire a lot, you want preventative maintenance. If you're not catching fire a lot, you really don't need it. Clutch braking, this is one that I use a lot on my tank destroyers. If you have a non-turreted tank destroyer or an artillery, clutch braking will save your life. It basically just makes you turn faster. It would also be useful on mediums if you like to try and circle kill your enemies. Scout tanks, I have seen some funny stuff on people with a ELC with clutch braking where they turn 90 degrees in just a half a second or whatever, at least it seems that way, and go skidding sideways. It's a useful one to have if you... I'm mainly saying for non-turreted stuff. But it can, like I said, it can be useful for turreted stuff as well. And now the last guy in this crew, with the last set of skills, this is the loader. What can the loader do for you? The loader is crap. Loaders basically, in my tanks, all get crewed up with the generic skills, firefighting, repairs, camouflage. Even if the tank has no use for firefighting, repairs, or camouflage because of loader perks, they don't have a skill, they only have perks. The loader perks are pretty much trash. Safe stowage. Well, let's start from the top. Intuition. Creates a chance that the loader will promptly switch between shell types, either while the gun is loaded or during the loading process. This might make you shoot gold when you don't really want to. This might make you shoot HE when you don't really want to. It basically makes the computer decide what round you're going to shoot. Not something I want to leave in the hands of artificial intelligence. There is a 34% chance that you might automatically load the shell, but that's not enough to make me want to use it. I can't really think of any time that I would use intuition. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. If there's somebody out there who says, oh no, I use intuition on every tank I have, well, I'd like to hear about it, because everyone I've heard has said they never use it. Adrenaline Rush would probably be the one I would put on 90% of my loaders if that was all I had left to choose, was the 3 loader-specific skills. Adrenaline Rush would be the first one I'd pick, because it does increase your rate of fire once you've gotten down to 10% of your health or less, which is usually when you want to be able to fire faster anyway. I've got one video on here if you care to look at my other videos where I have a 10 hit point Panzer III-4 that gets 9 kills. Adrenaline Rush would have made it 10. But, again, it's a perk, and it would be the only one I would use. If I had one that I had to just throw on there to train something, I would probably pick repairs and firefighting first. Safe stowage, this is the only one in 10% of the tanks that I would actually want. I would really like to have this on my Type 59. I would really like to have this on my T-14, because they tend to get their turrets blown off an awful lot. If you have a tank that has a very, very low hit point ammo rack, this would be a very, very good one to have. It increases your ammo rack's durability, and it reduces, which means that you can take a hit without necessarily being ammo racked, and it will also reduce the chance that you actually explode if you do get ammo racked. So that's useful for both of those. Well, I'm going to just show you real quick what my best trained crew looks like, just so you can get an idea of what I have going here. The commander, I have, well, first off, I have all of them trained on Brothers in Arms. Brothers in Arms is a good thing to get because it makes everything work faster. I believe it's 10% or something like that. Let's see here real quick. Brothers in Arms gives you 5% from the basic skill, so when you put Brothers in Arms and Vents, which I have on here, on all your tanks, it really increases the speed of the tank, the turning of the tank, the firing of the gun, the aiming of the gun, how far your commander can see, how fast your crew can repair, just any variable that's out there, it will increase. I have 6 cents on this because I also use this in a couple of my premium tanks that need to stay hidden. A Jagdtiger isn't really worried too much about staying hidden as much as, say, an E25, but I run this crew a lot in my E25, so I figured I would go with the 6 cents. You'll notice it's got Recon, or Situational Awareness, which is a radio operator skill. How the hell did you get a radio operator skill on a commander and a Jagdtiger? Well, like I said, he works on the E25, and I didn't realize until it was too late that I'd picked the radio operator skill instead of Recon. So I'm going to have to wait till it hits 100% plus to be able to change it back. But it does come in handy when I'm in my E25 still, so it's not a complete loss. I just can't use it in the Jagdtiger, the JigTig 88, or my Dicker Max. It's only good in the E25. My gunner, I have trained on Brothers in Arms, Camouflage, and Repairs. And the repairs are probably actually more useful than the camouflage on a JigTig, but again, this is one of my crew members that's in the other tank destroyers, which are a little more reliant on camo, especially the E25, so that's why I have the camo fully trained. My driver has Brothers in Arms, he has off-road driving, which if you remember makes you move faster, and clutch braking, which makes you turn faster. On a non-turreted tank destroyer like this Jagdtiger, being able to turn faster has saved my life many times. On my radio operator, oh hey, the radio operator actually has situational awareness that works. So he's able to see further. I've also got the signal boosting on him. And I'm not really sure why I did that. I think it was just because I needed something, and I just not like I said, I'm not really 100% why I have that. I just wanted to try it out, basically. And then my two loaders, you'll see, are pretty much exactly the same. Brothers in Arms, Repairs, and Camouflage. And the only reason they're using Camouflage is because this one goes in my E25 and this one goes in my Dicker Max. And so, those are both tanks that could really use a little bit of camo skill. We'll look at one more, and that's my E100. And you'll notice that with an E100, which is going to be in the mix, brawling all the time, I have Brothers in Arms to increase, again, its speed, its view range, its rapidity of fire, its aim time, all that. I have the Mentor ability going on my Commander, and the rest are evenly split between Repairs and Firefighting. And as soon as they get done with those, I'm going to switch them. These two here that are on Firefighting are going to be training Repairs. These three that are on Repairs are going to be training Firefighting. That's because this tank tends to catch fire a lot, and it tends to get tracked a lot. And so between the two skills, it will drastically help my performance in this slow, vulnerable to fire, heavy tank. Well, that's going to be about it for this video. I hope it was helpful to somebody. If you have any comments or suggestions, I'd be more than happy to hear from you. I would love to have some more people make comments in my channel. Anyway, I hope you all have a nice night, and be sure to like the channel and check out some of my other videos. Thank you. Good night.